there is so much jargon thrown around in the AI space, and especially in relation to GTM here on LinkedIn and other places. And I had a conversation on the weekend, and I think, where some of the confusion comes from. And yeah, I wanted to make a small contribution to maybe clear something up, especially from the perspective of a GTM leader, somebody who just wants results for their teams, for their company. And I think it also speaks to, at this point in time, this will be table stakes in a year or 2 or 3, I don't know. But at this point in time, having somebody either in-house who can make sense of all of this, or leveling somebody up in-house to be able to do this, or having somebody like me who does this from a consulting point of view, slotting in here, bringing GTM up to speed on what's possible in AI, and then potentially even transitioning out of there and finding somebody who can take this up full time. These are all things that I'm doing, but I really wanted to unpack, what does this mean that every day there's apparently a newer, smarter, better reasoning model coming out. And an important distinction here is that you can use AI for, and that's at least my interpretation of it, for two sides of GTM. First is, me as an operator, I can up-level myself. For example, when I work on a gig, on an engagement where I don't know a lot about my client's market, right? What do I know about HVAC and roofers and the home services industry? But I can use AI and very specifically deep research from OpenAI, which is just absolutely incredible. I remember even initially thinking $200 a month, who needs that? Like right now, I think, okay, I hope they don't raise it because I will pay it. It's incredibly valuable. And when I ask questions about my clients, about my client's market, how does the world of the people look like my clients sell to? This is when I use deep research and AI really to level myself up. To go into that, I use it as a thought partner. I use it to understand the market, first principles analysis. Why are we doing what we are doing? How can we break it down to find better solutions for that? Is it even the right thing that we are doing? And develop ICPs, develop ideal personas together with my clients in order to bake that into workflows. And for that, AI, and specifically the best, most expensive AI models, are really the best. There's no stand-in for that. But then there's the other side to the coin. And I'm going to show that in a very concrete example in a workflow in a minute. But then there's the other side of AI for data set building, where you really have narrow use cases, meaning, hey, just go out and tell me if this company is in home services. Yes or no? It's basically using AI to read websites. Technically, it's absolute rocket science what's happening on the back end, right? So I'm not making that smaller. But in terms of task, it's basically reading a website and not extracting keywords, but making that into a data point. This is home services. This is a roofing company. This is a digital native company, something like that. Then clear task definitions are really important there. And this also is where it's about the input that you use, and there is very little output generated. You get a data point out there. And these are the two sides AI is used in GTM. And the one side is to level up individuals, where you want the best, most capable models to be a thought partner at your side, or you use AI to build data sets, which is, as I said, basically reading websites and producing an output. These evals, they are called, which is evaluations of, by and large, the general intelligence of models. That is why you want to look for what is the most capable model for the task that I want to do. And when you look at general intelligence, models like GPT-4 Mini, which is very cheap, would not be good to be a thought partner for understanding a market or for understanding your customer's world. But if you want to use that for data set building, look at 100,000 roofing companies in the US and tell me What are their niches? What are their other verticals they are operating in? Are they commercial? Are they residential? That is not where you want to use an expensive model that's really smart. You basically want a thing that can visit these websites, look for what is this company doing, and then output what the output that you want. When you look at so for example, in order to produce this, the unpacked, I just used GPT-4 because it's multimodal. And I said, you know what? I want a really cool unpacked thing. This is a screenshot of the slide I'm going to show and generate a little graphic for me. And then it asks me, do you want a comic book? Do you want it futuristic? I went for the YouTube style clickbait box, which is what I think is pretty accurately done here. I was considering doing one of these shocked selfies for this. I doesn't want you to know this, but I just went with this one. But this is where I would not use a cheap AI model. This is where I want a higher end model, so it really, quote unquote, understands what I want. But jumping into a workflow, and this is where it gets a little technical, but I think it is really relevant to how to approach GTM in 2025. This is a super simple example. So what we are doing here is a TAM scoring. This is taking in companies that make it into this client's CRM. And just a few little things I want to point out where really it comes to light what it means to use a cheap AI model the right way. This is not the reasoning. This is where I just wanted to read stuff. So for example, in order to avoid bad quality data, I run a check if a domain is actually a valid domain. And believe it or not, that's really a thing where AI can be pretty good at. And in order to get to this answer, if it's a valid domain or not, which when you think about it, it completely avoids bad quality data in your CRM because you don't try to analyze a website that's a parked website and produces garbage. That is incredibly valuable from a workflow perspective. And since this is directly using a very cheap open AI model, the cost of this is a valid domain is less than 0.2 of a penny. And when you do this for a market, there you really see the difference if this is 0.2 of a penny or 2 cents. That is really a 20x, 30x, 40x difference sometimes, depending on what you would pay for that if you don't use the right model for the right task. I don't want to go too much into detail here, but just one more thing. For example, in order to sort if a company is residential or commercial, this result, that is a penny, hundredths of a penny, a thousandth of a penny. So that's less than a hundredth of a penny to get to the response if a company is residential, mixed, or commercial. That is incredibly valuable for GTM purposes, but you would not want to use one of these super fancy, expensive models for that. It's the thinking, what should I look for? For that thought partnership, you use an expensive reasoning model, but not to actually build the data set. Very important distinction here. And this is also the thing. The cheap, quote unquote, models, cheap, by the way, meaning they can look at a lot of text and it is not expensive to have it ingest all of this text. That is where you have to structure the prompts really well. So just to quickly show, this is how these prompts look like. This is already in a structured format, meaning it is very easy for the dumb AI model to follow that task because it really only looks for, is this company commercial, residential, or mixed? And you would not want to waste money on that result. And then this is consecutively building the data set for this market. I find it pretty amazing. When you look here, and I'm just going to pick that example. So the AI says this company is doing roofing and windows and doors. Here's some additional logic that windows and doors is only output once, but that's like a different part of this workflow. But let's look at the company, roofing, windows and doors. So what are their services? Residential roofing, commercial roofing, siding, and somewhere it will say windows and doors as well. Okay, roofing services, windows, siding, and because I'm a nerd, I have to get into it. So when we look at the actual result, this is the output the AI, the very cheap AI produced, roofing, siding, windows, and then it's the task of somebody operationalizing it to map that to different categories, because I don't want 5 million categories as an output, but if it says siding, that is actually the category roofing. So in the end, roofing will be put out. But that's more like how you can operationalize it with tools like Clay. That's less so about AI, but actually it is about AI, because the way I get from these verticals to these verticals is with this formula, but I don't know how to write this formula. So what I do is I use AI I use AI to say, hey, AI, this is the formula I want. This is what I wanted to do. Produce that formula for me, where we go back to not like ingesting data, building a data set, but where I apply AI in order to level up myself, because I don't have to learn JavaScript. I don't have to learn how to code. I just have to think about the logic and the output that I want. This is the other side, the using AI to level up side of things. And getting these results from the web, this is the side of using AI to build data sets. So recapping, AI for reasoning, use a very expensive model. By all means, spend $200 a month on ChatGPT Pro, because it's absolutely amazing. Whenever you start building a data set, or probably have somebody build a data set, then by all means, invest the time to create highly structured prompts and use a cheap, capable model like GPT-4 Mini in order to accomplish this task. Hope this was a little bit interesting and insightful, how to make sense of all this capable and intelligence in terms of AI. If there's questions, hit me up. Thanks for watching.